Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into something truly chilling. We're going to be unpacking the dark folklore surrounding the infamous Cursed Haveli in Kuldhara. So, grab a seat, get comfortable, or maybe leave the lights on for this one because we're jumping right into a terrifying tale of greed, black magic, and some incredibly dark secrets.
Now, I want you to ask yourself, what exactly happens at 3 a.m. in a completely deserted Haveli in Kuldhara? It's not just a random question. Think about it. We've all heard ghost stories, right? But imagine a family returning to their ancestral home after 20 long years, and right at the stroke of 3 a.m., something absolutely bone-chilling happens. That's not just a story anymore. That's a nightmare coming to life. Let's peel back the layers and see what really went down.
Chapter 1: The Cursed Haveli of Kuldhara.
So, picture this. The Cursed Haveli used to be absolutely stunning. The source material tells us this place was full of life, housing a bustling family of 8 to 10 people. It was vibrant, full of joy, the kind of place where the walls only echoed with laughter and the clinking of bangles. But, man, the reality today, it is the exact opposite. Instead of lush greenery, the soil around the property is bone dry, completely lifeless. And the absolute creepiest part? Right in front of the Haveli is the village's oldest well. It used to be full of fresh water, but now it's just this pitch-black void. The lore says that if you stand near it, it doesn't feel like a well at all. It feels like it's literally just hoarding the screams of the past. It's really become the ultimate symbol of the Haveli's ruin.
And clearly, this place doesn't belong to the living anymore. According to the tale, a family member named Keki is woken up at 3 a.m. by this knocking at the door. She opens it, and standing right there at the threshold is an old, hunched-over woman who casually says, "So you have arrived. I had gone out of the village for a bit." Now here's the part that'll give you goosebumps. That woman, that was Keki's mother-in-law's oldest sister-in-law who had been dead for years. When Keki mentions this to the family the next morning, the realization hits that this Taiji shouldn't even be alive. Talk about undeniable proof that something supernatural has completely taken over the property.
Moving on to Chapter 2: The 20-Year Dark Truth and the Hidden Motives.
Let's rewind a bit. 20 years ago, under the cover of darkness, Subhash and Ketki literally fled this Haveli in an absolute panic. They grabbed their 2-year-old son, Mohit, and just ran, never looking back. For 2 whole decades, they kept this massive secret, completely avoiding the state of Rajasthan altogether. But then, present day hits, and they suddenly return right to the very doorstep they ran from. Why? Well, the moment they arrive, the unthinkable happens. Their healthy, young adult son, Mohit, is suddenly struck with unexplained paralysis. Just out of nowhere, he collapses to the floor, shaking. You really have to wonder, what could possibly force parents to return after 20 years, knowingly risking their own son's life?
Well, surprise, surprise, the real reason they came back was 5 crore rupees. Yeah, Subhash and Ketki weren't there for a nice trip down memory lane. They were after a massive treasure buried deep inside that cursed, dried-up black well. We're talking over 5 crores in hidden wealth. It was literally this overwhelming, blinding greed that dragged them back to the very place they knew for a fact was cursed. And the lengths they went to for this cash are just horrifying. Think about it. Their own son, Mohit, is lying, completely paralyzed in his bed inside. And what do the parents do? Every single night, like clockwork, they'd wake up at exactly 3 a.m. They'd sneak out to that haunted well and perform these dark, secret rituals, hoping the treasure would just magically reveal itself on a full moon night. At one point, Ketki actually begs Subhash to leave because of how bad Mohit's condition was getting, but Subhash straight up refuses. To him, the gold sitting at the bottom of that well was literally worth more than his son's life. It just perfectly shows how cold and calculated their greed had become.
Chapter 3: The Mystery of Moran Handi and the Dark Magic at Play.
So, what exactly is a Moran Handi? Well, let me tell you, it's definitely not your average clay pot. According to the source, it's a cursed vessel used in incredibly dark tantric rituals, black magic essentially. If this thing is unleashed on someone, it means certain, unavoidable death. And it's not a peaceful passing either. The victims feel like someone is literally squeezing the breath right out of their lungs. The back-to-back deaths that plagued the Cursed Haveli over the years, yeah, those weren't coincidences. They were the direct result of the Moran Handi.
And here is where the story gets incredibly dark. Brace yourselves for this one. The string of deaths in the Haveli wasn't some random ancestral curse. It was a highly calculated plot. And the mastermind? Subhash himself. The source reveals this terrifying confession where Subhash admits that he systematically eliminated his own relatives.
every time a new heir threatened his claim to the property, he'd unleash the Maran Handi on them from afar. He literally sacrificed his own family members just to ensure that he, and he alone, would get his hands on that 5 crore treasure. But you know how it goes. Darkness always comes back to bite you. One night, right around 2 a.m., Subhash is getting ready for his ritual when he looks out the door and sees a Maran Handi literally floating in midair. His feet are glued to the floor in pure terror and he can't even scream. He's just thinking to himself, how can this be? Who released the Maran Handi? No. The very man who had spent years sending this exact curse to murder his own flesh and blood was now watching helplessly as the cursed pot floated right toward his son Mohit's room. Which brings us to our final chapter, the terrifying end of greed. The floating pot glides straight into Mohit's room. Now remember, Mohit is completely paralyzed. He starts thrashing around on the bed, feeling this immense, suffocating weight, like some invisible entity has literally climbed onto his chest. He screams out, "Let me go! I had nothing to do with this!" But as you can guess, black magic doesn't really care about innocence. He manages to drag himself toward the door, but right then, the Maran Handi shatters violently inside the room. All that's left is this thick, suffocating air, the stench of ash and rotting bones, and pure dark magic. Subhash's horrific sins had finally caught up to him, and the price was his innocent son. The scene they found the next morning is honestly the ultimate warning about unchecked greed. Mohit's lifeless, blackened body was just lying there on the floor, and Subhash, the guy who spent decades dreaming of wealth, was found half swallowed by the very walls of the Haveli. Ketki, who went along with all of her husband's evil plans, was left completely alone. The lore says she's now forever mourning in the Haveli courtyard in a white sari. Their entire family line just totally wiped out. And the ultimate irony in all of this, that 5 crore treasure, the very thing they spilled their own family's blood for, is still sitting right there at the bottom of that cursed well, completely untouched. Today, the Arksan Haveli still stands in absolute ruin, and locals say you can still hear bizarre noises coming from it. Ultimately, this story does way more than just scare us. It leaves us with a pretty heavy question. Is it ever worth losing your humanity just for the lust of money? Money is just something we invented, yet Subhash literally traded his humanity, his family, and his own son for it. And what did he get in the end? Absolutely nothing but death and destruction. I'm going to leave you to think on that. Thank you so much for joining me in today's Explainer. Really take a moment to consider the lessons from this dark tale. See you next time.